Welcome back, everybody, to my latest YouTube video. Appreciate everybody that watched the last one. I did get over 100 views, so I was very happy with that. So let's see if we can crack 200 with this one today. As I mentioned last time, today I'm going to be going into my initial wide receiver rankings for this upcoming fantasy football season. Now, I'm going to go over my top 50 list, just like I did for the running backs, right? I'm going to go through a set of 10 players. I highlight a couple, two or three guys I am definitely trying to get on my roster, and even though they might be ranked high, I'll let you know if there's maybe a couple guys I do have my worries with entering the season, and if they have as much value as they currently do on draft boards. So let's just go ahead and get into this. My top 10 wide receivers heading into this fantasy football season. Yes, some people are going to be very surprised. I did not rank the best wide receiver from last season, Cooper Kupp, as number one. I decided to give Justin Jefferson the edge. And the reason why, go watch my year 3 video. I'm a huge believer in the process of drafting year 3 wide receivers. That video dropped a few weeks ago where I go into that little drafting strategy or theory, if you will. And the reason why I rank Cooper Kupp higher is just because I just think that it's really hard to repeat as the number one player at your position in fantasy football year in and year out. There's always going to be somebody that surprises, and with Justin Jefferson, I think, set to have that year 3 boom. That's why I give him the slight edge. But don't get me wrong, if I can get my hands on Cooper Kupp, I will. That man saved me last year in my the league I won my fantasy football championship with. Getting him in the 4th round, that's crazy to think last year. If I remember right, that was like a 10 or 12 team league. I got him in like the 4th round, and now he's going as high as the number one wide receiver off most draft boards in the current fantasy football season. A couple other guys, CeeDee Lamb, that's another year 3 wide receiver I'm trying to target. I am a big believer that he's going to have a huge year this season, and that's also because like right now it's just him. Unfortunately, James Washington got hurt in training camp the other day. Michael Gallup is going to miss at least the opening game. He might miss 2 or 3 weeks to start the season. And then other than that, they have a bunch of unproven guys. Like they have some rookies that they're basically going to be depending on. So unless they bring in anybody else, CeeDee Lamb's going to dominate all the targets along with Dalton Schultz. So CeeDee Lamb, I think, is the arrow, the stock on him is just continuing to rise in my books. And then a couple guys I am worried about. I will go ahead and say it. Devontae Adams. Will I still draft him if he's on the board and I want to pick a wide receiver? Definitely. But my concerns with him is obviously he's not playing with Aaron Rodgers right now. I know he said that little thing going from a Hall of Famer to Hall of Famer and Derek Carr, but there's a drop off in talent and arm talent and decision making with that. But they are former college teammates. But mainly my main concern, not much the quarterback wide receiver chemistry. It's just that they have Darren Waller in that offense. They have Hunter Renfrow in that offense, and then it's a new system as well. It's a Josh McDaniels led system coming from New England, where we'll have to see how they do deploy him. Now, I do think he's going to provide you value. I just wonder if we're going to see a drop off in his productions just because of the other pieces within that Las Vegas offense. Another guy I will say is I was getting higher on him as we were getting closer to the season, but I do have some worries with Mike Evans this year. I'm a huge Mike Evans stan, but with the addition of Julio, I do think that's a little bit of a drop off for him. He would have been ranked higher on my list if they didn't get him. Now, Chris Godwin, we'll have to see. It does sound like he's going to miss the beginning of the season, but they still got Russell Gage, they got Julio Jones, they got Kyle Rudolph. But once Godwin is back, and they got Scott even, they're going to have to make a decision too when it comes down to cut down day. I wouldn't be surprised if other teams try to trade for some of their backups throughout this next month. But with that being said, I just think there's a lot of mouths to feed in that receiving room now, and I just wonder if Mike's going to be able to get those touchdowns that he has been getting over the last 3 years. Still think he could definitely produce for you, but there's some worries with me, and I may consider other players when it's crunch time, when that clock is ticking in my drafts throughout this next month. So yeah, that's my first set of top 10 players. Again, these are my initial rankings. These will fluctuate. And then what I'll do is I'm probably going to update them every week or so throughout the next month. And then I'll have an updated list throughout the season. So you guys will see those sprinkled into my videos. I got some plans on how you guys can see my updated rankings throughout the season. Moving into the next 10 set of 10 players, guys I'm definitely high on. Michael Pittman Jr., you're going to see this repeat. I'm already going to repeat this multiple times at this point. You guys know I love year 3 wide receivers, but not just that. He's entering his 3rd season, but it's just like CeeDee Lamb. It's a lot of unproven talent. Now, Alec Pierce will have something to say about that. Some of the other wide receivers I do believe in on that roster. And there is a rumor within the Colts insiders about OBJ maybe coming, but he wouldn't play until halfway through the season anyways. So with that being said, it's Michael Pittman's room. He's going to dominate the targets, so that's who I want. Like, volume is king. In terms of fantasy football. Another guy I'm going to be high on. Now, I obviously I have Tyreek higher than him, but I'm still a big fan of what Jalen Waddle can bring. He had a great rookie season, got over 100, got to the 100 reception mark. He won me a championship, so I always hold that into the soft spot of my fantasy football heart. But I just think, honestly, with the system that Mike McDaniel's going to run, I'm very curious how we're going to see Tyreek and him played, because we saw how, the San Francisco 49ers used Deebo Samuel. I mean, these guys can take jet sweeps, little handoffs, and take off and run. So I think you're going to see them used in a variety of ways. I think their skill sets between Tyreek and Jalen do match what Tua does as a quarterback. And I think we're going to see a very interesting offense. And I think Jalen Waddle is going to continue to build upon what he did as a rookie and put together a strong year 2. In the NFL. And then Allen Robinson, that's another one I want to say keep your eyes on. Unfortunate, my guy Van Jefferson, he's got knee surgery. They're targeting for him to make the opening game. But with that being said, that's another wide receiver that's out. So it's going to be Cooper Kupp. And they don't have OBJ right now. They traded Robert Woods to the Titans in the offseason. So Allen Robinson's the number 2 wide receiver. He offers a big body presence. He offers that touchdown upside as a wide receiver. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's right there with Cooper, with Matthew throwing him the ball. It's the first time he has a legit quarterback throwing him the ball in his NFL career. So he's set to have a huge year. Now, some guys in my top 10 I might have my worries with. I definitely with Brandon Cooks, he's as steady Eddie as a wide receiver that you can ask for. That's why he's in my top 20. He gets you points every week. There's not much competition there in Houston, but is Davis Mills going to be really the guy? There are some there's people out there that truly do believe in him. I do think he did show some good things last year in Houston, but there's a lot of question marks surrounding that Houston offense. So we'll have to see if Davis Mills can take the next step. And as long as, Davis Mills is doing that, I mean, I do see Brandon Cooks, providing that value for you. But if it all falls apart and Davis Mills isn't the future at the quarterback position, then all of a sudden Brandon Cooks is playing basically with an average quarterback or a turnstile quarterback or like a QB2 maybe if Davis Mills stinks or maybe gets hurt at some point. So that's my biggest worry with Cooks. Same thing, man. I love DK Metcalf. I got him still high on my list because I think either regardless of Geno Smith or Drew Lock, whoever wins that quarterback battle, I think they're going to turn to that big body who just got paid too. Sometimes you just want to follow the money in the NFL, and when you draft players, and DK Metcalf just got paid, so he's going to see a lot of targets regardless. I think he's going to be their number 1 option when they go to the red zone. But again, sometimes I get very worried with who the wide receiver is tied to at quarterback. I don't trust Drew Lock or Geno Smith. I still think he offers that upside because I'm such a big believer in his talent, but I do have my worries about him as well. And then same thing with Amari Cooper. I've always been a fan of Amari Cooper, but we'll have to see what's the final suspension for Deshaun Watson. But those first 6 games, he's with Jacoby Brissett, so there is that slight worry about, and you have to wait on him. Are you going to be drafting him too high to pick him when he's going to be missing his main quarterback for 6 games? But when Watson's back on the field, though, assuming the 6-game suspension does stand, we should know that in the coming days. That back half of the season, I think Amari Cooper can provide some great value to people. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does drop on most draft nights. And I don't know. I just still see there's a value to him. But obviously, if something changes in the Watson suspension, he's out for majority of the season. I'm probably going to drop Amari pretty far on my rankings. Now let's go ahead and move into the next set of 10 players, guys I like. Jerry Jeudy, again, a year 3 guy. I'm not going to have to repeat why. Go watch that video so you guys can hear me go into too much detail. But mainly him and Cortland Sutton, actually, to be honest. Both those Broncos wide receivers. There was an unfortunate injury today at Denver's training camp. Tim Patrick tore his ACL. He's a guy that was basically going to probably, compete for he was going to compete to have the most snaps. It sounded like he had great chemistry with Russell Wilson. But now that he's done for the season, that provides more fantasy value for Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. And we saw what Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf got to do with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson can provide enough fantasy values to two different wide receivers. I don't see anything going wrong if you go Cortland Sutton then Jerry Jeudy, or Jerry Jeudy then Cortland Sutton. I just gave Jeudy obviously the bump because he's going into year 3. Another sneaky guy is Amon-Ra St. Brown out of Detroit. He got peppered with tons of receptions. Basically, he was a PPR machine in that back half of the schedule last year. Their rookie, Jameson Williams, that they selected in the first round, it sounds like, based on a report that came out today, he's probably not going to play until November. Now, they do also have DJ Chark from Jacksonville there, and they do still have Quintus Cephas, a guy I like. But, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown established that chemistry with Jared Goff last year. I think he carved himself out a role. And if he continues to see as many receptions as he was getting, he's like, for me, just to kind of go off on a tangent, when I draft my rosters, when I target wide receivers, I play in leagues where you have 3 wide receivers in the starting lineup. Most of my leagues, anyways. So that third wide receiver spot, I always try to find a PPR guy that I think is just going to get peppered with targets. He might not get a lot of yards. He might not get a steady touchdown flow. But he's getting all those receptions. And if you're in a PPR league, that just stacks up for you. And that's why I always try to target a PPR god for my third wide receiver spot on my roster. Another guy I'm liking, obviously, is Marquise Brown. He's a guy where he actually is in the top, I should have wrote it down before I recorded, like top 5 in touchdowns over the receiving touchdowns and out of all wide receivers since 2019. And I think with him going to play with Kyler again, they both played back in Oklahoma. DeAndre Hopkins is out for the first 6 games. They're going to rely heavy on him, and I think he's going to have a significant role. I think he can pick you up chunk games, and I think when you look for like the home run threat that's going to be in that Arizona offense that could take advantage of Kyler's arm talent, it's going to be Marquise Brown. We'll have to see if he can put it all together and be that true number 1 wide receiver there in Arizona, but I'm liking the upside of what he can offer for where he is going in drafts at this point. Now, kind of highlighting some guys I might have some concerns with. Michael Thomas. So that's an interesting one, right? So Michael Thomas is back at practice. We haven't seen him play since January of 2021. So it's basically been, a year and a half since we've seen Michael Thomas has been on the field. Now there's some good reports coming out of training camp saying it's looking like the old Michael Thomas. So you're talking about a guy that's been one of the most consistent producing wide receivers when he is on the field. So this is a guy where I think we're going to probably see his ADP rise over the next couple weeks. I can definitely see that happening because he's a guy that's a former, top 5 fantasy wide receiver, and I mean, that's where you can see yourself drafting him. But then my concerns, right? The injuries, I think Jameis can make him a producing wide receiver. I mean, he used to do it with Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin when he was in Tampa Bay. So that's not my biggest worry. But Jameis is coming off that torn ACL. If he does get hurt, Andy Dalton's a backup. Do I trust that in situation? And then they do have Chris Olave as a rookie wide receiver who I really like coming in. And they also have Jarvis Landry as well. So there's going to be competition. Michael was like the true alpha dog in that wide receiver room when he was producing. Now he's going to have another first-round rookie in there and a guy like Jarvis Landry who can be a PPR type of guy in that offense. And then another one for me is people might be surprised because I know he's in the top 15, I think, in most people's wide receiver rankings. But Deontay Johnson, I just have my worries with him. He is in a contract. I guess it is a dispute going on. He's trying to get that deal now. I don't know if it's going to affect anything where he gets traded or not. If he gets traded to Green Bay, sign me up. Maybe then if he's playing with Aaron Rodgers. But I just wonder if he's going to be able to continue to see as many targets as he did. He had so many targets and receptions over the last few years, and that was mainly because Ben Roethlisberger really struggled to push the ball down the field, so he had to settle for the guy that was running those intermediate routes. Now Big Ben's gone. We're gonna we're probably gonna see both Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett throughout the season. Do you trust that quarterback situation? Chase Claypool's there, and then they got a guy I like too, a rookie wide receiver in George Pickens. So there's competition for targets, and I just wonder if he's going to provide you the same value that he has over the last 3 seasons. And then moving on to the next set of 10 guys, guys I like. Brandon Aiyuk. Again, I didn't realize this until I hopped into the video. I have kind of set it up where like this next set of 10 starts with a year 3 wide receiver. But yeah, Brandon Aiyuk's entering the 3rd season. Obviously, I don't have to go into why, but another situation is the fact that he has just Deebo Samuel, right? So Deebo Samuel has his role in the offense. There's George Kittle, but then he can just be that 3rd option for Trey Lance. He made a really nice catch in training camp just yesterday. He did get in a fight with Fred Warner today, I think a couple times, if I remember that report right. But I think Brandon Aiyuk is set to have a huge uptick in targets, receptions, and production this year. So he's a guy I definitely want on my roster. Another guy that's I don't know. I wonder if I should put him up higher, and I'm starting to like it more as a fantasy wide receiver as we head closer to the season, and that's Christian Kirk. I know a lot of people gave a lot of flack, which was it wasn't Christian Kirk's fault. It's never the player's fault for getting paid what they get paid. It's the team and the general manager that paid him. So, yes, when he reset the wide receiver market earlier in the offseason, that was an overpay for Christian Kirk. But he's still a talented wide receiver. And again, I mentioned earlier, follow the money. Jacksonville paid him to come there. I talked about my quarterback ranking video. I think we're going to see a good year out of Trevor Lawrence this year. And I think he's going to be Trevor Lawrence is going to rely on him. I think he can offer big plays with his field stretching ability. He's a precise route runner, and I just think that he's a guy that can end up being a wide receiver too on your roster if everything goes right there in Jacksonville with that passing offense. And it sounds like him and Trevor Lawrence have some really good chemistry going on so far in training camp. Now, another couple worry guys one thing, Alan Lazard. So that's my last guy I really like. It's just because, again, volume is king. I look for opportunities, and he is the top wide receiver in the Green Bay offense. Obviously, they lost Devontae Adams. They don't have Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So, I mean, yes, Randall Cobb is there, so technically he's the older veteran. But if you want to look at who's been on the roster over the last 5 years, Alan Lazard has been on that roster longer than Randall Cobb has. He just came back after being there earlier in his career. Plus, Cobb is a lot older, right? And then Christian Watson's currently on PUP list. They have a guy named Romeo Doubs who is looking good in camp, so that's a name to watch. But other than that, I expect Alan Lazard's going to get his. He's going to see plenty of targets from Aaron Rodgers, and he's more than likely going to be the number 1 option when they get to the red zone. So I really like his touchdown upside heading into the year. Now, some worry guys I'm with, Adam Thielen. I think he's in a good situation, but there is the rise of KJ Osborne within that offense, so I could see Adam Thielen seeing a drop-off in production. Now, the thing that's kept Thielen alive over the last couple of years has been his touchdowns. He just always finds the end zone. Sometimes eventually you're going to hit a wall with those touchdowns, and that might happen this year. So I do have my worries if I'd rather go a younger route with somebody younger over Adam Thielen heading into the year. And then I will say I do like Drake London's situation there in Atlanta. I mean, it's just him and Kyle Pitts. I mean, there's Brian Edwards, you could say. But basically, he could dominate the targets. The volume opportunity is there, like I keep on saying throughout this video. But I don't know if I trust Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ridder, whoever is the quarterback throughout the year, to get him a consistent ball where you can trust him in your lineup throughout the season. So that's why I do have my worries, but I see a path for him to be a strong wide receiver 3 this season. Now let's move into my bottom 10. Guys I like. Now, a lot of these guys on this list, honestly, they're guys I kind of do like. They're just it depends on their situation. So highlighting some guys I like. Obviously, Chase Claypool, year 3. That's the only reason. And then I got Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore tied there together because I could see either of them being the leading wide receiver 1 in New York. Now, I'm leaning towards Garrett Wilson because I really like what Garrett Wilson offers as a wide receiver. So I gave him the slight edge, but I don't think you could go wrong with getting one of those 2 wide receivers in New York because I think that we're going to see an explosive playmaking offense there through the air with Zach Wilson and the litter of wide receivers that they do have. And then I mentioned Chris Olave earlier. If something happens with Michael Thomas, he gets injured again. Chris Olave has a path to be a wide receiver 1 in that offense. He's a great route runner, and I think with Michael Thomas being there too, though, that's gonna take the defense's eyes to Michael Thomas. So that does offer a potential opportunity for Olave to produce. And then and then other guys that maybe I have my slight worries. Maybe Traylon Burks. I wonder if he's going to be dependent on too much as a rookie. I mean, I know they got Robert Woods there in Tennessee, but he is filling A.J. Brown's role in that offense. Sounds like he shook off his problems back from the spring, and now he's having a good training camp thus far. But that's a name to watch. But I'm just wondering if I can trust that passing offense in Tennessee this year. That's where I do have my concerns. And then obviously Michael Gallup, keep in mind he's likely going to miss the first game, if not the first 2 or 3 weeks. But the reason why I still have him so high is because, like I talked about earlier with CeeDee Lamb, once he's back in the lineup, he's going to see like the second most targets in that offense. And I think we're going to see a huge passing attack from Dallas and Dak Prescott this year. And then the name to watch is Devontae Parker. There's some other names I thought about putting there, but it sounds like he's having a good camp. I could definitely see him having like that, oh, now I'm in New England, I'm going to be healthy and be a consistent producer type of bounce. But again, these are just my initial rankings, so these could easily change. So as always, I appreciate you guys tuning into my latest video. If you enjoyed today's video, as always, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and then tell a friend. Let's continue to build this community. If there's anything you're looking out of for video content over this next month, get in my comments. Let me know what you're trying to see. Let me know what wide receivers you're trying to get on your roster, which wide receivers you're trying to avoid. Get in the comments section and get that going. My next video will be the tight end rankings. I don't know when I'll be doing that. It will be at some point this week. Could be in a day or two. Could be by Saturday. I'm just trying to figure out my schedule throughout these next few days. But other than that, guys, again, like, subscribe, tell a friend to go check me out. I'll talk to you guys later.